December 12th, my ex-wife got a text message from her saying that my son broke up with her, and December 20th, he was murdered.
Imagine you raising a kid that's an honorable kid, a good student, an athlete who could be something in the future, and somebody just took his life away.
I just don't understand it, so we want justice. That's it. Keimo was a fun-loving guy. He loved his family and his love his PlayStation, and his passion was football, and he just didn't deserve what he got.
He couldn't go a day without being happy.
I want justice. That would at least ease the pain a little bit. I shouldn't have to be fighting for my son.
She told police it was horseplay. That was the word she used. Horseplay. The explanation she offered for how a 17-year-old boy ended up stabbed in a parking garage at his own apartment complex in Liberty City, Miami, 2 days before Christmas. They had been playing around. Things had gotten out of hand. It was an accident. The knife was never meant to be a weapon. The wound was never meant to be fatal. She said it was horseplay, and she said it was an accident, and she said she had stayed at the scene and tried to render first aid and had cooperated fully with investigators. But the parking garage had surveillance, and the surveillance had audio. And on that audio, in the moments before Yahkeim Lollar was stabbed, you can hear his voice. City of Miami Police Sergeant Juan Santos testified about what that audio captured. He said you can hear the victim saying at some point, "Jahara, don't. Jahara, don't." Those two words, preserved on a surveillance recording in a parking garage in Liberty City, are the full rebuttal to the horseplay explanation. They are the voice of a 17-year-old boy in the moments before the end of his life, saying the name of the person who was going to end it and asking her not to. They are the specific, terrible evidence that what happened in that garage on December 20th, 2024 was not an accident, was not horseplay, was not a thing that both people were participating in equally with equal enthusiasm and equal understanding. It was something that Yahkeim Lollar could see coming. Something he tried to stop with the only tool available to him in that moment, which was his voice, his name for her, and the word don't. Welcome to the Crime Files TV. This channel covers the stories from Black American communities that deserve to be told completely, with the victims at the center and the full weight of every detail treated with the respect it demands. Subscribe now if you are not here already. This case has a verdict, a sentencing, a mother who pointed out that her son was 17 when he died, and Jahara Malik will spend 17 years in prison, and a judge who ordered something that no court in any case covered on this channel has ever ordered before. This is the full story of Yahkeim Keimo Lollar. Now let's start from the beginning. Yahkeim Lollar was 17 years old. He was a junior at Miami Northwestern Senior High School, a school with a proud football tradition in one of Miami's most storied communities. He was a running back. He was a straight-A student. He had a plan for his future that extended beyond the football field. He wanted to study finance. He wanted to build something. He was the kind of 17-year-old who had already started thinking about what kind of adult he was going to be, who had combined athletic ability with academic discipline in a way that made the people around him believe in what was coming. His family called him Keimo. That nickname, the particular shortening of a name that becomes someone's real name inside a family and inside a community, tells you something about who he was to the people who loved him. Not Yahkeim in the full and formal sense. Keimo, warm, close. The name you use when someone is yours. His father, Darvid Lollar Sr., described his son at sentencing in the language of a man trying to give judge the full picture of the child he had raised and lost. He said his son was not hanging around the wrong crowd. He said it took somebody Keimo trusted and loved to do him like that. He said his son was not weak. He said he was a well-respected young man. And then he said something that landed in that courtroom with the specific weight of a parent who has been sitting inside the truth of what killed his child for months and who has finally been given a room in which to say it plainly. He said Keimo was taught not to be abusive to women. And he said he thinks that was the reason for his demise. His son's respect for women, his upbringing, his decision not to respond to the situation in the garage with physical force, was part of what cost him his life on December 20th. Keimo's mother, Natalie Jean, had been fighting for her son's justice since the night he died. She did not disappear into private grief and wait for the legal system to move on its own timeline. She showed up. She brought her family. She brought her community. She talked to the media. She sat in courtrooms. She made clear at every available opportunity that her son's life mattered and that the person responsible for taking it needed to be held accountable. When the judge allowed Jahara Malik to post a $50,000 bond and go home on GPS monitoring in January 2025, Natalie Jean's family and supporters gathered outside the Miami-Dade State Attorney's office to protest. They called the bond a slap in the face. They said Malik should be in jail. They kept the pressure on in the specific way that families of victims who understand that the legal system requires sustained engagement to produce the outcome they are seeking keep the pressure on. She told reporters in March 2026, when Malik entered her guilty plea, that she wanted the maximum sentence. She said 30 years. She said that was what she wanted. She said a life for a life. She said Malik had taken her son's life for no reason. And then she said the most specific and the most important thing she said publicly about why her son was dead. She said he was honest with Jahara that he did not want to be with her. She said Malik's actions, her behavior, her entitlement, were the reason Keimo did not want to be with her. And she said Malik's inability to process that, her inability to accept his decision, was what brought everything to the parking garage on December 20th. Entitlement. That is the word Keimo's mother used. The specific belief that she was owed something that Keimo was no longer willing to give. That his decision about his own romantic life was not his decision to make. That the relationship ending on terms he had set, rather than on terms she accepted, was an injustice that required a response. That framework, the belief that ending a relationship is an act done to the person being left rather than a choice made by the person leaving, is not unique to any age group or any community. But it is particularly dangerous in its most extreme expression, and the parking garage on December 20th, 2024. It's what its most extreme expression looked like in this case. Jahara Malik was 17 years old at the time of the stabbing. She had no prior criminal record. Her attorneys argued from the beginning that the case should be handled in juvenile court, that Florida law allowed the direct file of juvenile cases into adult court, but that someone as young as Malik, with no prior history, deserved to have her case adjudicated within the framework designed for young people rather than the adult criminal system. The judge who handled the initial bond hearing set a $50,000 bond and GPS monitoring, a decision that Keimo's family protested loudly. A subsequent judge elevated those conditions to level 1 house arrest, allowing Malik to leave only for school and attorney meetings after prosecutors argued for tighter restrictions. Her defense attorney Larry Handfield said she had stayed at the scene and tried to render first aid after the stabbing. He said she had cooperated fully with investigators. He maintained early in the proceedings that the stabbing was the result of self-defense, a claim that would eventually be abandoned as the case developed, and the evidentiary record crystallized around what the surveillance audio had captured and what the physical evidence had established. The knife used in the stabbing was shown to the court during the sentencing hearing. It was not a penknife or a pocket knife. It was the kind of knife whose presence in a parking garage on the night of an argument between two teenagers who had recently ended their relationship raises specific and important questions about intent. Prosecutors rejected the horseplay explanation. Prosecutor Kristen Rodriguez said directly at sentencing that the stabbing was not the result of horseplay. She said it was a deliberate act. The surveillance audio, with Keimo saying Jahara, don't, was the foundation of that argument. You do not say don't to someone who is horseplaying with you. You do not say the person's name and the word don't when you are participating willingly in the same activity they are engaged in. You say don't when you are asking someone to stop, when you can see what is coming, when you are afraid. In March 2026, 14 months after Keimo's death, Jahara Malik entered a guilty plea to manslaughter with a deadly weapon. She entered the plea without a negotiated deal. That specific choice, to plead guilty without having secured a sentencing agreement from prosecutors in advance, placed her fate entirely in the hands of Judge Christine Hernandez. It was a significant legal decision that her attorneys made, knowing that the judge could go as low as probation under youthful offender treatment, or as high as 30 years in prison. Everything depended on what Judge Hernandez decided after hearing from the families, the investigators, and Malik herself. The sentencing hearing on May 5, 2026 lasted more than 5 hours. 5 hours of testimony, victim impact statements, Defense arguments and the specific sustained emotional weight of two families whose lives had been permanently altered by what happened in a parking garage 5 months before Christmas. Lollar's loved ones packed the courtroom and the connecting hallway. The density of their presence was its own statement about who Keimo was and how many people he had mattered to. The victim impact statements were the emotional center of the entire proceeding. Darvid Lollar Sr. said what he said about his son's upbringing and his son's respect for women and the specific cruelty of what had happened. He said the person who killed Keimo was not a stranger or an enemy or someone from the wrong crowd. It was somebody he trusted and loved. Natalie Jean said her son could finally rest in peace. She noted the specific coincidence, or the specific symmetry, of the number 17. Her son was 17 when he died. Malik would spend 17 years in prison. She pointed to that number and let it speak. Keimo's aunt, Zeldrina Beecham, was the most visceral presence in that courtroom. She said she was doing everything in her power not to physically attack the defendant. She addressed Malik directly. She said, "It will always be a fact that you are a murderer." She said, "You are a demon seed that your parents brought into this world to bring suffering on everybody else." She said, "Shame on them." Those words, spoken directly to the face of the person who had killed her nephew in a parking garage while he was asking her not to, are the full and unfiltered expression of a grief that has no interest in measured language. Zeldrina Beecham had spent 5 months watching the legal system process her nephew's death, watching a bond hearing and a house arrest upgrade and a plea and a sentencing date come and go, while Jahara Malik went to school and met with her attorneys and lived outside the walls of a prison. Whatever Beecham felt in that courtroom was the accumulated weight of all of those months, delivered in the only forum where she finally had the chance to say it directly. Several of Malik's family members came to court as well. They were there for the same reason Keimo's family was there. Because someone they loved was at the center of this. Because the outcome of the hearing would determine what the next years of their lives looked like. Because they could not be there. Some of them left the courtroom in tears after the sentence was announced. Malik's uncle, Gary Malik, told reporters afterward that justice had not been served and that in cases like this, everyone loses. He said the court had failed to fully consider his niece's age at the time of the crime. He said she deserved a different outcome. He is Jahara Malik's family and he loves her, and he said what he believed, which is what the people on the other side of the aisle were also doing when they said what they believed. Two families carrying the same weight from opposite directions. Jahara Malik addressed the court before sentencing. She said she was haunted by what had happened. The content of those words is documented in the coverage as a statement of being haunted, but the specific language she used is not fully reproduced in the public record. What is documented is that she spoke, that she stood before Judge Hernandez and said something about what December 20th had cost her and what she carried from it. Whether those words adequately captured what December 20th cost Keimo Lollar and his family is a question that the people in that courtroom will answer differently depending on which side of the aisle they were sitting on. Judge Christine Hernandez sentenced Jahara Malik to 17 years in Florida State Prison, followed by 5 years of reporting probation. She was not given youthful offender treatment. She was not given the minimum. She was given a sentence that the defense had argued was too long and that the victim's family had argued was too short. Prosecutors had asked for 20 years plus 10 years of probation. Keimo's family had asked for the maximum 30 years. The judge landed at 17, which is the number that his mother named at the end of the hearing as the specific and terrible symmetry of what had happened. Her son was 17. The sentence was 17 years. And then Judge Hernandez did something that no judge in any case covered on this channel has ever done. She ordered Jahara Malik to write a letter every year on December 20th, while on probation, acknowledging what had occurred and reflecting on how the crime had affected her life. Every year, on the anniversary of the day she stabbed Yahkeim Lollar in the parking garage of his apartment building. Every December 20th for the 5 years of her probation, she will be required to put in writing what happened and what it cost. That order is the most unusual sentencing condition in any case this channel has covered. It is a judge saying something specific about what accountability looks like over time, not simply a prison sentence that ends when the years have been served, a recurring, annual, written acknowledgement. a requirement that the person who said it was horseplay acknowledge, in writing, every year on the anniversary, that it was not, that it mattered, that it changed things permanently, that Yahkeim Keimo Lollar was real, and that what happened to him on December 20th deserves to be named out loud. Every year on the day it happened for as long as the court has jurisdiction over Jahara Malik's life. The family is considering an appeal of the sentence. That possibility means the legal proceedings in this case may not have reached their final chapter. Whether an appeal results in a longer sentence, a shorter one, or no change at all is a question that the Florida appellate system will eventually answer. As of the time of this video, no appeal has been formally filed. Now let's talk about what this demands we understand about the specific danger of the ending of a relationship, particularly when one party believes the other party's decision is not theirs to make. Keimo's mother said it plainly. Her son told Jahara Malik he did not want to be with her anymore. She said that honesty, that directness, that willingness to be clear about where he stood rather than letting things drift into ambiguity is part of what led to what happened. His father said the same thing from a different angle. He said his son was taught not to be abusive, not to harm, not to use his physical size or strength as a response to conflict. He said that upbringing was the reason for his demise. What both parents are describing from their different perspectives is the specific and documented danger of the moment when a relationship ends and one person does not accept the ending. The research on intimate partner violence in young people is not as extensively studied as the research on adult intimate partner dynamics, but what exists consistently shows that the patterns present in adult cases begin to emerge in adolescent relationships, possessiveness, the belief that a partner's autonomy over their own romantic choices is conditional, the inability to process rejection without externalizing it as an act of aggression by the other person, the escalation from emotional conflict to physical danger that can occur when those patterns intersect with a specific triggering event, in this case a breakup that one person had not consented to and did not accept. Keimo was a running back. He was physically capable. He was not, by his father's own description, someone who was afraid to stand up for himself, or who would have been easily overpowered by a physical confrontation. He said, "Jahara, don't." He was asking her to stop. He was using his words rather than his size because he had been raised to use his words rather than his size when it came to women. And the specific vulnerability that created the space between his choice not to respond with physical force and her choice to continue is the space in which his life ended. His father named it. He said his son's respect for women was the reason for his demise. That is a father sitting inside one of the most painful and complicated truths available in the full record of this case. That the values he raised his son with, the values that made Keimo the kind of young man that his community and his school respected, were the values that created the specific vulnerability that December 20th exploited. He said it not to critique those values. He said it to honor them and to name the specific and terrible cost they carried in that parking garage. Yahkeim Keimo Lollar was 17 years old. He was a running back and a straight-A student and a young man who wanted to study finance. He had a plan. He had a future that the people around him could see clearly enough to describe in specific terms: football, finance, Northwestern, the next chapter. He was not someone whose death was waiting to happen because of the choices he made or the crowd he ran with. His father said so explicitly in a courtroom in Miami. He was not hanging around the wrong crowd. It took somebody he trusted and loved to do him like that. He said, "Jahara, don't." In the parking garage of his own apartment building, 2 days before Christmas, he said the name of the person he had trusted and the word "don't." The surveillance captured it. The court heard it. Sergeant Santos testified about it. And Judge Hernandez built a sentence around it that will follow Jahara Malik in the form of a required December 20 letter for as long as her probation runs. Natalie Jean said her son can finally rest. She said he was 17 and now so is the sentence. She said she hopes when Malik goes to prison and gets processed, she thinks about the lives she destroyed and how much she affected their families. His family never stopped showing up. From the bond hearing to the house arrest upgrade to the plea to the sentencing. They packed that courtroom. They stood outside the state attorney's office. They carried the hashtag Justice for Keimo across social media for the 16 months between his death and the sentencing. They kept his name present in the public record because they understood that keeping his name present was the only available form of advocacy in a case that was still moving through the system. If someone you love is in a relationship where a partner is responding to a breakup with anger, threats, refusal to accept the decision, or any behavior that makes them feel unsafe, please take that seriously, and please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Free, confidential, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, by call, text, and chat at thehotline.org. The research on separation violence applies to young people as much as it applies to adults. The danger of the breakup period is real at every age. Please do not navigate it alone. Subscribe to the Crime Files TV. Share this video for Keimo, for Natalie Jean, who never stopped fighting, for Darvid Lollar Sr., who named the truth of what his son's upbringing cost him in a courtroom in Miami, for every parent who is raising a son to respect women and who deserves to know that the world around that son is equipped to protect him when that respect creates vulnerability. She called it horseplay. The recording heard him say, "Jahara, don't.